In light of all the positive things that I have to say about YNC, would I choose YNC over Yale if I could redo my college experience? Hey guys, welcome back. It's Vic and I'm so sorry. It's been a hot second since I sat in with y'all and just chatted about life. The past semester or the past 3 months have been really hectic because I've been settling into Yale-NUS in Singapore, where I'm doing my exchange semester. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Yale-NUS is a joint university venture between Yale in America and NUS, or the National University of Singapore, in Singapore. This video is going to be a little bit about why I've decided to stay for the next semester at Yale-NUS, meaning that I will probably be graduating from here. Yes, even though I am a Yale senior, I have spent my entire senior year in Singapore at Yale-NUS. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing some of those reasons that I decided to stay, as well as doing a comparison between my experiences at Yale-NUS over the past semester, as well as my experiences at Yale over the past 3 years. This video is going to have a ton of information, so if you can, watch all the way to the end because Yale-NUS and Yale are very different, and so if you're thinking about coming to either one of these groups, you'll want to consider all of the perspectives that I'm going to provide to you. We have a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. Before I start, there are a few very important disclaimers that I want to make. First of all, these are my study abroad experiences. I know for a fact that I have many other exchange friends, both from Yale and other US universities, who have had different experiences. Some of my Yale exchange friends are deciding to go back next semester. Throughout this video, I'm going to try and incorporate some of the things that my other exchange friends have had to say about the experiences at Yale-NUS as well. Secondly, I'm an exchange student at Yale-NUS. This means that I have a very different experience from a normal Yale-NUS student. According to Yale's study abroad regulations, as long as I get above a C-, my grades don't count towards my GPA. So even that adds a subconscious sense of relief and release of pressure academically from me as I went through the past semester. On the other hand, a lot of my Yale-NUS friends are always academically very stressed. So bear that in mind. It's something I'm going to be talking about later on in this video as well. Thirdly, I feel like I really could only appreciate my past semester at YNC to the fullest because I've had 3 years already at Yale. YNC has offered me a lot of things that Yale couldn't, and vice versa. And finally, bear in mind that I've only been here 1 semester, right? Like the luster of being in a new place, of having new experiences, of making new friends, that hasn't exactly worn off yet compared to the 3 years that I've had at Yale University. So bearing all of that in mind, let's move on into my actual thoughts on YNC and why I'm choosing to stay here for the next semester. So first of all, one of the big differences between Yale and YNC is the student cohort size. At Yale, the student body population is about 6,000, and at YNC, it's a little over 900. This has a big influence on the academic experience as well as the social life, which are the 2 main things and the 2 main reasons that I'm deciding to actually stay at Yale-NUS. So first of all, let's talk about the academic experience. One of the things that I personally really like about YNC is how many Singapore and Southeast Asia focused classes that they have. And I know this is very specific and very relevant maybe only to a fellow Singaporean or someone else who is interested in the region or from the region, but I think YNC's unique course offerings that are so honed in on the Asia perspective is something that I didn't really get at Yale. So Yale has quite a few East Asia and South Asia classes, but not really classes focused on Southeast Asia, and that is something that I really personally lacked in my educational experience back at Yale. So definitely bear this in mind if you are someone who intends to work in the region in the future, or just generally have a lot of academic interest on Southeast Asia, because if that's the case, then YNC would probably be a better fit for you. Also, all of Yale-NUS's classes are seminar style, except Common Core, which is not something that exchange students have access to. Since so many Yale-NUS classes are seminars, it means that the quality of teaching is very high, you get a lot of exposure to your professor, and your classmates are usually very well prepared and very hardworking. Of course, there are a lot of seminars that are also offered at Yale, but Because Yale is so much bigger, there are so many more courses that are offered, meaning there's a whole range of classes from lectures to seminars, and the quality of teaching, I would say, varies depending on which classes that you choose. So my experience has been positive because the classes that I've had are academically rigorous and also expose me to content that I didn't get exposure to back at Yale. However, there are also cons to the academic life in YNC. First of all, because it's so much smaller, the course offerings are a lot more limited and there's a lot more competition for classes. I know for a fact that there are a lot of modules that are oversubscribed. People are always frantically trying to figure out their combination. Especially as a first year and second year student, I've heard that it's very common for you not to get the modules that you select as top choice during the module selection process. I, on the other hand, never really had that problem as a Yale student just because there were so many courses on offer. YNC, because it's so much smaller, also has a lot fewer major options compared to Yale. So I know that a lot of my friends chose to go back to Yale because they did not have courses that were offered in their major. For example, my friend doing linguistics or my friend doing computer science, they didn't have a wide enough selection of classes to pick from at YNC and so had to go back to Yale to fulfill their credits. Me, on the other hand, I'm doing environmental studies, which is a quite popular and big major that has quite a few classes offered at YNC, which is why I'm deciding to stay. And another down is definitely that it can be academically stressful to be a student at YNC, and this is for many reasons. First of all, is that what I mentioned, classes are smaller and so there's a greater pressure for you to be prepared for every single class. Secondly, grade inflation is definitely a thing at Yale that's not at YNC. So grade inflation is a problem that happens across all US universities, whereby a lot of students get A's and A minuses a lot easier. And as a result, it's a lot easier to do well, I would say, at the Ivy League. That's kind of sounds pretty ironic, but I think it's true based on my past experiences. Another factor is just the general study culture. I'm not sure whether it's because we're in Singapore, like an Asian country, where everyone studies really hard, but I would say people seem to invest a lot less time in extracurriculars, especially as third years and fourth years, than my peers back at Yale. So that's something to bear in mind as well. So bearing in mind that all of the exchange students have different experiences, I asked some of my fellow exchange friends about their academic experiences at Yale-NUS. The first person I asked, who is also incidentally going to be staying next semester, said, "I've loved the experience. Academically, it's the first semester I felt so much freedom to take the classes that I'm really interested in, particularly since the selection of Asian and Southeast Asian classes is much more expansive. I've also really liked the no lecture system, and I enjoy class discussion immensely. People come to class really prepared, and I seriously learn so much from my classmates." On the other hand, my other Yale friend who is going back to Yale afterwards says something a little bit different. He says, "Academics-wise, I think the assignments here are a lot more rigorous in that they require more regular work. At Yale, the workload varies, but I'll say that the intellectual challenge at Yale is higher. I feel like classes aren't as discussion-heavy here as I would like it to be, meaning that people don't talk enough. Classes at Yale are very participatory, but in my experience, Yale and US classes feel mostly like lectures." Now this is very interesting because it differs from what my previous friend said, which is that she likes the no lecture system. And I personally as well find that my Yale and US classes are very comparable to my Yale classes in terms of how participatory and vocal my classmates are. But I guess every student takes a different course load and no class is going to be the exact same. So that's why we all have these different experiences. Okay, so moving on to the second major factor that influenced my decision to stay, which is social life here at YNC. Bear in mind that obviously now it's COVID times and so things aren't exactly back to normal, but Singapore's restrictions are much more relaxed because the COVID cases are very much lower here compared to the US. That means we can still participate in events, we can still eat together in dining hall, we can still have in-person, face-to-face classes, we can play sports, we can participate in extracurriculars. It's a lot more normal than I think how Yale is right now, which is another reason why I decided to stay. But I would also say that the YNC social dynamic is a little bit different from Yale. I think that's partly because of how small the school is. I'm just going to read out what my friend has to say because I think she summarized it really well. Yale NUS's significantly smaller size makes making connections a lot easier. Some people don't like it because it's so small, and I think it's a matter of personal preference, but it's worked out great for me, and me as well. It was one of the first differences I really noticed coming into Yale NUS. Physical size is one thing, which I personally find a little bit constricting sometimes. Like, the campus is like a 10-minute walk, and that's a bit too tiny for me. But anyway, going back to what she has to say, I think the social closeness that a small school fosters is intimately valuable. Everyone knows everyone, so you can easily find another student that has taken a class with a certain professor. Also, my second friend said this, which I also agree. Social life here, by virtue of being in a city and being in a place as tiny and accessible as Singapore, means that social life is often outsourced to other places in the country, which makes campus feel a lot less insular. On the other hand, at Yale, social life was pretty limited to the school itself, not even the wider New Haven. Even though what my friend says is true about Yale, that a lot of the social life is restricted to activity within the campus itself, I personally found that my social life at Yale was good to the extent that I always had something to do. There was always an event to participate in, or to go for, or to watch on campus. But the main difference I personally experienced was how much closer I got to my suite mates. I've mentioned this in some previous videos that I've done that I will link up here, but my social experiences at Yale weren't the best. I never really clicked with my suite mates, nor did I find a strong community in my college. But at YNC, for some reason, I really love my suite mates and we hang out all the time. I'm not sure whether that's because I am Singaporean or because it's such a small community, but for some reason, I found it a lot easier to click with the people that I was living with. And just generally speaking, I know so many people from my extracurriculars, from my classes, living in this college. So I feel like there are a lot of people that I recognize and I can say hi to in the corridors, something that I could never really do back at Yale. Yale-NUS is usually, in non-COVID times, known for its stellar international experience. The student body is 49% international, so that's much higher than I want to say the 10% at Yale. You definitely make a lot more international friends. Usually your freshman suite is made up of a lot of internationals. Additionally, it's very normal for Yale-NUS students to do a study abroad. In fact, I would say nearly every single third-year student at Yale-NUS in non-COVID times would study abroad. This is not even including summer experiences, field trips, of which I know most of the time students also go overseas for. In general, if you're looking for an international experience, I would say Yale-NUS is definitely the place to be in non-COVID times. Hey guys, editing Vic here. I just wanted to clarify this point that I'm making in the video right now, because as a Singaporean or any other international student going to Yale to study, that in itself is an international experience. So as a Singaporean, even though Yale-NUS has a lot of international opportunities, going to Yale was actually a better option for me if I wanted international experience, because obviously I was moving overseas to study and I was going to be away from home. So it really depends on who you are and what kind of experience you're looking for. Fourthly, I think the fact that Yale-NUS is in Singapore is also a big factor and a big difference to Yale. Yale is in New Haven, which is a very tiny town, but Singapore is a thriving city, and so there's a lot to do outside of campus. There's a lot of places to explore, visit, and also maybe even travel to in the region, because Singapore is so close to other Southeast Asian countries that you can visit for vacation. As I said, when travel restrictions are no longer an issue. And I for one hope that you're watching this during a time when travel restrictions is no longer an issue. Hopefully that's in the near future. In conclusion, I want to address a question that people have asked me after hearing about my decision to stay at YNC instead of going back to Yale, which is that in light of all the positive things that I have to say about YNC, would I choose YNC over Yale if I could redo my college experience? My answer to that is no, because I think that Yale provided me a lot of things that YNC could not. Like I mentioned earlier, they have a much wider selection of courses. They also do have amazing research opportunities, especially if you are in STEM. Thirdly, I was able to take classes in graduate schools as well. So I took a lot of classes in the Graduate School of Forestry, which is now called the Graduate School of Environment. Fourthly, I think it really pushed me out of my comfort zone. Being away from home, going overseas to study is a whole new experience, right? You experience independent life in a way that you never really do back home, but also I had to learn how to adjust to a new country's customs and way of living. And honestly, I think that's a very invaluable experience that most people should try to have. It really broadens your perspective on other people and on the world. I think overall there are a lot of experiences, a lot of travel experiences, a lot of academic experiences, social experiences that I would not have had if I did not go to Yale. So even though YNC has been an amazing ride so far, and I'm really excited for the next semester to come, I think that Yale is also an amazing place to be, obviously. And if it weren't for COVID, I definitely would like to go back. Phew, that was a long video. If you watched till here, thank you so much, and I hope that it was useful. Leave me any questions that you have in the description and I'll be sure to get back to you. Overall, my experiences at Yale and Yale-NUS have been fabulous, and I would say both schools I highly recommend. I really love them both in their own ways. So with that, I will see you guys real soon because semester is finally up and I can make more videos. So stay tuned and thank you for watching as always. Bye.